Can I ask you something? Have you ever had an argument with someone where deep down you knew the facts were on your side, but no matter what you said, they simply refused to admit they were wrong? Maybe you have experienced it with a friend, a family member, a colleague at work, or even your partner. You present the evidence, you explain your point calmly, you even show them proof. But instead of saying, you know what, you're right, I made a mistake, they change the subject, make excuses, blame someone else, or somehow turn the conversation back on you. By the end of this, you are left wondering, why is it so hard for some people to admit they were wrong? If you have ever asked yourself that question, you're not alone. And today, I would like us to explore the psychology behind it. Because here is something that might surprise you. For many people, admitting they are wrong isn't just about accepting a mistake. To their brain, it can feel like admitting they were not good enough. And those are two different things entirely. Welcome to Psychology Compass, where we unravel mysteries behind human behavior. I am really glad you are here. Every week, we sit down together and explore the psychology behind every thought, emotions, and behaviors. Not to judge people, but to understand them a little better. So let's think about this together. Imagine a young child building a tower with blocks. They proudly show it to their parents. A few moments later, the tower collapses. The child doesn't just feel disappointed about the tower. For a brief moment, they may feel as though they have failed. As we grow older, most of us learn to separate our mistakes from our identity. We learn that making a mistake doesn't make us a failure. But not everyone develops that separation in the same way. Psychologists often talk about something called self-esteem. Self-esteem is simply the way we evaluate our own worth. In other words, it is the story we tell ourselves about who we are. People with healthy self-esteem can usually admit they are wrong without feeling like their identity is under attack. They think if I made a mistake, they think I made a mistake, not I'm a mistake. That is different. There's a difference, might sound small, but psychologically it is enormous. Imagine someone whose self-worth depends on always appearing intelligent, capable, or in control. What happens when they are proven wrong? To you, it might look like a simple disagreement. To them, it can feel like a personal threat. Their brain isn't just trying to win an argument, it is trying to protect their identity. And that is where something fascinating happens. Psychologists call this ego defense. That sounds like a complicated term, but it's actually quite simple. Think of your ego as the part of your mind that protects the way you see yourself. When that picture is threatened, your brain often reacts automatically to protect it. Almost like your immune system protects your body from illness. Except this time, it is protecting your self-image. That is why some people immediately become defensive when they are corrected. Not because they are evil, not because they are trying to frustrate you, but because deep inside, their brain has interpreted correction as danger. Now, that doesn't mean they are right. It simply helps us to understand why they react the way they do. Here is another psychological idea that is really interesting. Have you ever noticed that once people make up their mind about something, they often look for information to support their opinion while ignoring information that challenges it? Psychologists call this confirmation bias. Don't let the name intimidate you. It's simple. Simply means our brain naturally like information that agrees with what we already believe. Imagine you've convinced yourself that you are always right. Without realizing it, your brain starts paying attention to moments that confirms that belief. At the same time, it quietly overlooks moments when you are mistaken. It's almost like wearing glasses that only lets you see the other side, one side of the story. The glasses aren't changing reality, they are changing what you notice. And here's the tricky part. This happens to all of us, not just the stubborn people. Every human being has confirmation bias to some degree. The difference is that some people are more willing than others to question their own conclusions. That willingness is one of the strongest signs of emotional maturity. Because real confidence doesn't come from never being wrong. It comes from knowing that being wrong doesn't diminish your worth. Think about the wisest people you've met. Were they the ones who always had the last word? Or were they the ones who could smile and say, you know what? I hadn't thought about it that way. I've noticed that truly I've noticed that truly confident people don't need to defend every opinion. They are secure enough to learn. That's a very different kind of strength. Sometimes we think the strength means always having the answer. But if you really think about it, the strongest people are often the ones who aren't afraid to say, I don't know, or I was wrong. Why? Because their confidence isn't built on being perfect. It is built on knowing that learning is more important than protecting their pride. There's another psychological concept that helps explain this. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance. I know that sounds like one of those complicated terms you hear in a university lecture, but the idea is actually very simple. Cognitive dissonance is the uncomfortable feeling we experience when two things don't fit together. For example, imagine someone believes I'm a very honest person. Then one day, they are caught telling a lie. Now, their mind has a problem. On one side, it is the belief, I'm honest. On the other side, it is the fact that they lied. These two things don't fit together, and the brain doesn't like that feeling. So, what does it do? Sometimes, instead of admitting the mistake, it starts making excuses. It wasn't really a lie. Everyone does it. I had no choice. Notice what is happening. The brain isn't always trying to discover the truth. Sometimes it is trying to reduce emotional discomfort. The same thing happens during arguments. If someone strongly believes they are always reasonable, admitting they are wrong creates an uncomfortable conflict inside their mind. So instead of changing their opinion, they may change the story. They blame someone else. They focus on a tiny detail instead of the main issue. They bring up something you did 6 months ago, or they simply refuse to continue the conversation. From the outside, it looks irrational, but psychologically, it makes sense. Their mind is trying to protect them from emotional pain. Now, there is something important. Understanding this doesn't mean we excuse hurtful behavior. If someone repeatedly refuses to take responsibility, it can damage trust, relationships, and communication. But understanding the psychology behind it helps us to respond with wisdom instead of only frustrations. It also invites us to look at ourselves because if we are honest, we've all had moments when admitting we were wrong felt uncomfortable. Maybe not in a big way, but in small ways. Maybe you defended an opinion a little longer than you should have. Maybe you blamed your busy schedule instead of admitting you forgot something. Maybe you knew someone else had a better idea, but your pride made it difficult to say so. The truth is, this isn't just their psychology. It is human psychology. The difference is that the emotionally matured people learn to pause before they react. They become curious instead of defensive. Instead of asking, how do I prove I'm right? They ask, what if there is something I haven't considered? I think that's one of the earliest questions any one of us can ask. Because growth begins the moment we are willing to learn. Not because the moment we're determined to win. So what can we do when we meet someone who never admits they are wrong? The first thing is to remember that arguing harder doesn't always change their mind. In fact, psychologists suggest that when people feel attacked, they often become even more defensive. Sometimes the best approach is to stay calm, ask thoughtful questions, and give the other person space to reflect rather than forcing them onto corner. People are often more willing to change their minds when they don't feel humiliated. And what about ourselves? The next time you realize you've made a mistake, try something different. Instead of seeing it as a proof that you've failed, see it as a proof that you are learning. Nobody grows without getting things wrong. In fact, every expert you admire has been wrong countless times. The difference is that they are willing to learn from it. So maybe the real sign of intelligence isn't always being right. Maybe it is being willing to change your mind when new evidences appear. Before we finish, I'd like to leave you with one question. Think about the last disagreement you had. If you look back on it, honestly, was it there? Was there even a small part where you could have listened a little better? Not because other person was completely right, but because every conversation gives us a chance to understand something we didn't see before. I would love to hear your thoughts. Do you think people refuse to admit they are wrong because of pride, fear, childhood experiences, or something else entirely? Share your perspective in the comments. Reading different viewpoints is one of the best ways we can all keep learning. And if this conversation helped you understand yourself or someone in your life a little better, I really appreciate if you subscribe to Psychology Compass. Every week, we'll continue exploring the hidden psychology behind everyday behaviors, not to judge people, but to understand them. Because we understand people better. When we understand people better, we communicate better. We build stronger relationships. And we'll become a little kinder, both to others and to ourselves. Until next time, stay curious. Because every behavior has a reason, and every mind has a story. See you in the next video.